Welcome to the Winning Edge Investments Podcast. Winning Edge Investments provides industry-leading horse racing and sports betting tips, ratings and education, enabling you to invest intelligently and treat your betting like a business. Go to www.winningedgeinvestments.com to learn more about how you can start to supercharge your betting bank immediately. Treat your betting like a business and invest intelligently with Winning Edge Investments.
Alrighty, well, welcome everyone to our 2025 Caulfield Cup Preview. I'm Dean Evans, founder of Winning Edge Investments, and really excited to have Luke Murrell joining me from Australian Bloodstock. Luke needs no introduction. He's a name familiar to most in racing and has been with us for a few Melbourne Cup previews. This is the first time we've done a Caulfield Cup preview. As a founder and director of Australian Bloodstock, they've achieved amazing success buying and racing horses, particularly producing them from overseas, winning many Group 1 races, including 2 Melbourne Cups with Protectionist in 2014 and Gold Trip in 2022. And Luke, you've won Sydney Cups, Epsom Handicaps, Hong Kong Derbies, Manicatos, Maturities, Turax, TJ Smiths. You've won Group 1s in Germany. You've won it all, but have you won a Caulfield Cup?
It's an absolute graveyard for us generally. So I'm like a bloody chook in a fox house at the moment. I'm petrified, but I think we've got very good chances this year. So let's hope.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear. And it's my first Caulfield Cup runner alongside you. I had a chat with you, and we got Winning Edge Investments involved in Vauban, so we're also very, very excited. He's all geared up for this race, and obviously the Melbourne Cup. But we'll go through each runner, have a chat about your thoughts. I always love speaking with you from a selfish perspective on getting your insights from the the imports, because for me there's no one in Australia with a better handle on all the overseas horses. You obviously spend a lot of your time following those overseas horses from all over the world, Europe, UK, Germany, you're across Japan. You're pretty much looking at anywhere in the world where you can buy a high quality horse for yourself and for your Australian Bloodstock people. So always very keen to get your thoughts. And I think the last few years we've nailed the Melbourne Cup between us and the sort of top 2 picks. And I think last year if Warp Speed had got home, that would have been another fill up, but we got nutted there. But anyway,
how didn't they protest? I still can't understand that, but anyway.
Yeah, it would have been nice. But
yes.
I go through some of the profiling of the Caulfield Cup for the last 14 years. Pretty even mix of ages: 3 4-year-olds, 4 5-year-olds, 3 6-year-olds, and 4 7-year-olds. The barriers are pretty even too. Barriers 1 to 9 have had 8 winners, and barriers 10 to 18 have had 6 winners. From a career starts perspective, also with 15 starts or less, there's been 3 win those, a couple of 1 with 30 plus starts from limited runners. Last start distance, 4 winners who've had that 2,400 meter run last start, and 8 who coming off sort of a 2,000 meter run. 5 geldings, 6 centaurs, 3 mares. It's a good form race. So horses around the first 6 their last start have won in 13 of the last 14 years. Horses around the first 5 of their second last start have won all 14 out of 14. So it's a form horses race. And from a weight perspective, 55 kgs and above, which is the top 6 this year, have had 9 winners from 78 runners, and under 55 kgs has had 5 winners from 171 runners. So the horses up in the weights have sort of won double the Caulfield Cups from half the runners, which shows it's sort of a class horse type of race. We've had 4 overseas imports, 1 in the last 14 years, a couple from Europe and a couple from Japan. They've all sort of been between $8 to $14. They've also run 4 seconds and 5 thirds. So they've sort of made up a fair chunk of the sort of winners and place getters. It's definitely a race where the imports have a good record. So that's why I'm very keen to hear your thoughts on all of them. And as a general rule, the locally trained horses usually need to be at least sort of 4th up, unless they've had that prep in Queensland, where they can then sort of sometimes run 2nd or 3rd up because they've got that residual fitness. From a map perspective, this is what I've got, but let me know if you've got any sort of changes. I'm sort of above average tempo. I think River of Stars and maybe Banker's Choice will set the speed. I don't know much about the overseas horses. I've sort of got all of them: Meydaan, Golden Snap, Presage Nocturne, sort of handy midfield with the likes of Deakin and Adelaide River, Revelare, Plymouth. I've then sort of got half yours, your two, Royal Supremacy and Vauban, and Absurde, maybe a bit worse in midfield, and then sort of Birdman, Zardozi, Valiant King, Land Legend, and maybe Middle Earth out the back. But is there anything you can tell us from speed map perspective, particularly around, maybe the Meydaan and Golden Snap and Presage Nocturne, Absurde?
Yeah, interestingly, just your comment there on the overseas horses. We've got 18 runners this year again, and only 4 locally bred ones. So, of course, the favourite's one of those. So, yeah, they might get one, they might not. But look, from a speed point of view of these overseas horses, the ones that I suppose most people wouldn't be familiar with, Presage Nocturne is a French horse, and generally with your French racing, they go out as slow as buggery, quicken up a little bit from about the 800, and then they sprint home the last 400. So I expect him to be not within that first half of the field. I don't think he'll feature in that. He'll be in that second wave, and it wouldn't surprise me, a horse like him, if he's not, last couple. They won't want to be last couple, but I think this will be similar to you, a little bit above average type tempo, but he's got this one run in Saudi Arabia, this horse, which I know that sounds weird, but they've got a big money race over there that a lot of the decent horses went to. He ran really good, and arguably the horse that could have won the Arc this year showed up and won that race, Byzantine Dream, and that's really his only banner that he's holding to say, if you want to back this horse.
Okay.
They went fast there. It's a big, long, makes Flemington look like Moonee Valley, big track. And he probably just got found out class-wise there, but I expect he'll be at the back. Meydaan, he's probably the horse that's got off the plane, and there's been probably a little bit more media about him. He's got some sexy form on paper, but again, from a speed point of view, I really struggle to see him being in that first half of the field. Again, some of these horses have got some suck inside gates, so do they try and ride them a little bit upside down and ride them there? Those two horses in particular, that I think it would be fair to say that the grey horse Prestige, he'll be coming for a Melbourne Cup, and the Caulfield Cup will be a warm-up. Meydaan, I think he's coming for both, but I would think connections are more focused from a Caulfield Cup point of view. He's got a little bit more class than the other horse, but again, he's been in a couple of fast run races and just hasn't been comfortable on the bridle, and they've eased him back a little bit further. So I can see that happening here. We might remember Absurde. Has he been here once or twice the last couple of years?
Yeah, he's been here twice. This is his third time now.
Third time. So he's the horse that, if they want to be more urgent, and interestingly, they've gone with a local rider in Ben Allen, he could be a lot closer if they want to be. He actually has got some speed. So he's the one I think might disrupt a few speed maps. I think he'll be a lot closer than people think. That gets us down to the Japanese horse. I think the first thing to remember is Japan has the best horses in the world, but we've seen, like with most European countries now, they've more gravitated towards breeding milers and 2,000-metre horses. The days of their elite 24 and beyond horses are sadly behind us at this stage. And while he's a horse that has generally been able to settle midfield, he's been settling midfield with a soft gait. Now, what did he draw here? He drew 18 here. Couple of times that he's drawn a bit wider. He hasn't pinged like you would expect, and they've sort of eased him back. So, again, I think in their brain, they're coming here. This is their lead-up run. So, I know it sounds silly to say it's a $5 million race and he's having a bye, but I don't see him here coming out guns blazing. from a Caulfield Cup point of view. I think he'll go back, and every chance he settles back as well. And that's about it of the probably the ones that we haven't seen too much of. They're straight off the plane, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. That's really, really good insight on where those imports are going to map. So let's go through the runners. We'll obviously start with the top weight, Vauban, 58.5 with Blake Shin aboard. He's had two 2,400-metre runs in Australia. I think arguably he could have won both. I think if Timmy Clark had sort of stayed along the rails there in the Tancred where he ran third to Dubai Honour, he may well have challenged for that race. And then obviously the Metrop, he sort of got shuffled a long way back to last. He was carrying that big 58.5 when most of them were carrying sort of 50.5. Was only beaten a length and a half, and he was sort of in restricted room there at their end. Is obviously a class stayer, but what are your thoughts here after the draw?
Yeah, for those that don't know, I'm far from a one-eyed supporter of my own horses. That I treat them all a little bit individually and different, and I think there's so many positives for this horse. From what you just sort of mentioned, he's going to have to be a very good horse to win because he's got to carry the 58.5. But I think we've seen over the last at least 10 years, the weights have become more compressed. And sadly, each year, as the staying horses are just such a limited pool of horses, not just in Australia, but around the world, the race is becoming more of a good horses race, and for the fact that there's probably just not the depth of previous years. So while you've had some very good horses carry top weight, they've been in some exceptionally strong years. When the Japanese bought their really good horses, and I still remember Samantha Miss could have won one, and little things like that. So 58, you would say, oh yes, it's a concern, but I suppose history says it's a concern when you look at the horse and what he's been able to do both overseas and even here. This horse carries weight, so it's not a drama for mine. If we focus, obviously recent form's good form. If we focus on his last run, if you get a chance to go and watch that, he's not a horse I find that loves being cluttered up and inside them. So I think barrier 13 is a gift. It's sensational for him. And the last start in the Metrop, he was in a shit sandwich. He had one on his inside, one on his out, one behind him, and one in front. So you find a lot of the European horses can be a little bit claustrophobic, and I think he certainly suffered from that. There's no doubt if he gets a clear run, I think he beats my other horse that won the Metrop. And you don't have to be Einstein to say it's not a vintage year in terms of a Caulfield Cup. So he's a genuine top three sort of hope here. The rider upgrade to Blake Shin, I think, is a positive. He's just got a different set of race smarts and thoughts. Like Tim Clark's a very good rider, but he's probably better suited to those horses up on the speed. And if he can you look at this horse at 2,400 when he's been able to settle and balance up. As you said, he should have won a Tancred, and there's no Dubai Honours here, that's for sure. So, and that was on his probably favoured tempo. So whether it's really firm, I said there's a little bit of a shower due Friday, but there's no wind, importantly. Caulfield can be a horrible track wind-wise. I just think he gets into a three-wide running line, and he's going to be exceptionally hard to beat. For mine, the Caulfield Cup generally is a race that you want to be on the second wave of horses. I think there's enough tempo here. He gets onto the back, hopefully, of a horse like Birdman, who's some hope. And again, for mine, I think there's so many positives for him. We've seen him this year under Gay and Adrian be a lot better behaved in the mounting yard. That was always a negative against him, so that's improved. So he's got to do it back in Melbourne. That's probably the only box he hasn't ticked, parade properly. But he's certainly shown the last couple in front of big crowds that he's done that. And, he bounced back fantastic. And I personally just love the whole 2,400-metre run as a lead-up as opposed to 2,000, despite maybe the record saying it's a little bit better coming out of a 2,000-metre race.
Yeah, no, there's still a good record of horses having 2400 last start, which is a positive. I think he's a class horse. And I think while we have a chat here, it'd be good to get thoughts on some of these key runners for the Melbourne Cup too, just as people are starting to look at their futures bets and ahead of time. I know Gay had a quick chat to her at a Sunday Stables thing a couple of weeks ago, and she was very gung-ho about the Melbourne Cup. And even at the barrier draw this morning, she again seemed to sort of say, look, the Melbourne Cup's a big go for Vauban. I know we both think can definitely win this race, but are you even keener for the Melbourne Cup, or what do you think in terms of Vauban?
I'm actually keener in this race than in the Melbourne Cup.
Okay.
And it's not my theory, it's the great Bart Cummings, but I'm massive on the Bart Cummings. You've got to have 10,000 metres in their legs.
Yeah.
And for mine, I think we've erred a little bit. I know Gay has from day one wanted to win the Melbourne Cup with him, but history says you want to have 10,000 and he's going to fall short of that. So I think today or Saturday is our best hope to get the big fat check. For mine, he's a top 5 chance in a Melbourne Cup, but there's probably going to be one or two others there better credentialed, and he's certainly going to have to find his best if he's going to do that. But I will give her credit. Look, as of 12 months ago, she just said the Melbourne Cup's his race, so it will be interesting to see how he progresses. And if he's going to be winning a Melbourne Cup, he'll run top 4 here, and I'm convinced he should be able to run top 4 the way the race looks for Saturday.
Has he run the Melbourne Way, apart from obviously his 2 Melbourne Cup runs? Has he run the Melbourne Way overseas, or has he always gone the Sydney?
Yeah, no. He won at York. He won a Group 2 at York carrying 59.5 and ran smashing time 3,300 metres that day. So York's one of them. Curra's the other way. Ascot's the Sydney way. York again.
Okay, so he has done
it.
it.
Yeah, so he has done it. So that's not a major. And he's also done it at Leopardstown as well. So for him, I don't think that's a major worry. I just think his previous Melbourne Cup tactics have been disgusting, and it's probably sort of found him not giving him the best chance.
Yeah, I still go back to that run, second behind Kyprios, who for me has been the best stayer for of recent times. And then when he beat, and Giavoletto was a distant third there, and then it came out and spanked them over that Group 1 2400 at Hong Kong, and that for me, if he finds anything like that, he's going to be competitive in both this race and the Melbourne Cup.
Well, the big thing is he's got that big dirty rating next to his name, and they get that for a reason, and it's look, he's shown those glimpses, but nothing against Tim. But to be honest, I think every run in Australia, including his win, had things go his way, whether pilot error or the horse. But I think there's massive improvement. I think there's 2 lengths improvement with the rider change. So, and I think it'll be a positive for us.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think Tim Clark's a great rider, but I think he hasn't been the right rider for this horse, and could not be happier with Blake Shin, to be honest. I think of the choices that were there, he's just absolute A grade. So very happy with that. All right, let's move on to Presage Nocturne. Certainly on paper, this French form, it's been successful in the past. I think the winner of that Group 2 pre-Kergolay, which Presage Nocturne ran 3rd in last start, beaten just 0.4 lengths. Pretty sure, did Protectionist win that race and American?
Yeah, they both did, actually.
Yeah, they both won that coming into a Melbourne Cup. So, and then, Start Before he's run 3rd in a Group 1 at Longchamp. So I know you sort of are saying that you think that he's probably more of a Melbourne Cup than Caulfield Cup horse. Am I feeling that right from your perspective?
Yeah, 100%. You find the French horses, particularly because they don't run very hard overseas early, and especially in a lot of French races, different in Europe, like in England, where you've got undulating tracks and flat tracks and tracks up hills. They can get different race shapes, but France, you generally don't. I thought he was particularly poor last start in the Kergolay. It was a dog shit race. They went terrible. They walked. The sprint home was okay, but compared to everything else in the race and against horses that would be far inferior to some of these, he was only very, very common. Like I said, he's really only got the one run. If you're interested in this horse, it's the Saudi Arabia race. He got beat 5 lengths that day to an absolute superstar in this Byzantine Dream, the Japanese horse. Second was a horse called Epic Poet, and Epic Poet's probably just a listed Group 3 horse here. Continuous was a bit of a pacemaker, so hence we had some speed. And the other two horses in the race failed. So he did go around at 33-1 in that race. Despised outsider. He ran okay, don't get me wrong, but...
Is that on grass?
Yeah, it is on grass. And really fat prize money, like wonderful prize money race. Yeah. But look, he had his chance, petered out, and I think it was a case. There was just a couple in the race that underperformed, and it's the Caulfield Cup. Even though I've probably just sort of touched, it's not a vintage year. Outside of that winner in that particular race, the rest of them weren't much good or going into the race sort of well out of form. So.
And as Group 3 win over 3,000, as Group 1 third over 3,100, they don't enamour you for the Melbourne Cup?
No, they weren't. They weren't fast run races. There was no real sectional quicken. It's just an absolute grinding type efforts. And got to remember, it's a bit like those horses that used to run second to Winks and Black Caviar. Something's got to run second and third. And look, he's a little trier. So if you want to back him to run top 10, I wouldn't talk you out of him, but it wouldn't surprise me if he runs a nice 14th. I don't really give him a chance. He's just that grade below.
Okay, it's good to know. Yeah. Let's move on to Middle Earth. Interesting. He's got a large weight for mine, 54.5. I think he's only won a Group 3.
Yep, you're right.
At Newbury, he ran in a couple of Group 1s at Ascot and Doncaster and got absolutely lapped. Third in a Group 2, a distant third. He's come here, he's won an open handicap over 2,000, but he's kind of not really measured up at Group 1. They're talking him up. Mark Zara's really talking him up, saying, I've been waiting for this race, 2,400. I don't see it, and I think he's really harshly weighted for what he's done for mine, but tell me what's the reality here?
Look, I suppose you look at his effort in the 1,800 metres race at Caulfield in the Group 1 where he got beat 5 lengths. He didn't do much sectionally there. So he's obviously a little bit of a project horse. What I can tell you on his, if we were just looking at his Newbury and his Ascot runs, either side of Newbury, he would be the deserved favourite in this race. He ran some unbelievable sustained sectionals over 800 and 900, only the elite horses could do. So
that was his listed win over 2,800 and his Group 2 third over 2,400. That's what you're referring to?
Yep, they were exceptionally good races in that regard. And actually his third to Isle of Jura and Goliath, he'd be $2.80 on that effort here. It's just completely different level. Then he stepped out in a Group 1 and got beat 90 lengths, so there was obviously an issue. He would have been I know for a fact they paid a lot of money for him, and so he would have been a project horse. So he's had that disappointing run at Ascot, come to Australia, so he would have been that project. Let's throw the kitchen sink at him. He's been able to win the Flemington race, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I'm tipping they had him revved up to the eyeballs. We've got him back. They threw him in the deep end in a couple of Group 1s. He failed, and then they backed off him pretty quickly. And I think it's been with a goal in mind that it's purely all about a Caulfield and Melbourne Cup. Interestingly, he's a half-brother to Buckaroo, for those that like Buckaroo or who don't like Buckaroo. So I thought, like I said, that Caulfield Group 1 run was only average. And then you would have liked to see more the other day at Flemington, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, he missed the start, which is probably the only excuse you can give to him. But I thought he was, again, but there's nothing I've seen in Australia of him that screams Caulfield Cup. But, apart from, like you say, that they're very bullish on the fact that they've set him for this one race and this one race only.
Yeah.
But, we just haven't seen it yet from him. But that's why we get you on here for your expertise, because obviously there's some runs over there in the UK that you regard very highly.
Yeah, they were exceptionally rating races, like proper world-class efforts. And look, it's such a... I find the race this year a little bit tricky because we've got that Turnbull run, which is just such a crappy race the other day, where they've gone so slow, and all that basically told you was which horse could sprint the best. So to be fair to this horse, he's always been a 2,400 metre type animal. I don't think he probably could have done much more than he did, but at the same stage, you're sort of taking very much on faith that the stable's got him cherry right for this race. Interesting. Is it interesting that Zara's stayed with him over, say, a horse like Zardozi? Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, he seemed quite bullish. I mean, to be fair to him, like you say, they ran 11.5 lengths below standard for the first half in the Turnbull. He missed the start 3 lengths. He did run the 5th quickest last 800 of the day, plus 8.9. So it was reasonable, although his sort of last 400 and last 200 actually wasn't as impressive. Yeah, I guess it's just a case of, have they set him for this one race? Is he ready to peak here? He does at least get a good draw in the right distance range, but this will tell us. I got the sense from hearing them that this was his race. The Melbourne Cup they might think is a bit too far.
Yeah, okay.
I got that impression from what I heard from Mark Zara, but okay, interesting runner. I was going to put a pen through him, but yeah, like is he the sort of horse that you would consider buying given his performances, or was he just too expensive, or like is he good enough?
Just too expensive and
yeah,
whatnot. But he is a quirky horse because he has had a couple of funny runs in his career, and I always worry about those ones. That, are they 100% genuine? When do they turn it up and that type of thing? But look, I suppose it's only 12 months ago, and if you're going on that form of 12 months ago, given he hasn't had heaps of racing and he's raced at that better level, I think, you can back him to run top 9 or 10. I'll be going looking for him to run, if they're betting $5 or $6 to run 8th or 9th or top 8 or 9, I think you could certainly entertain him in that regard. He is good enough. At least he's got some type of form and ratings where maybe a lot of them don't have that sort of ability to get to that level.
Alrighty, number 4 is Meydaan. He's been pretty heavily backed here from the imports. Trained and owned by the same connections as West Wind Blows, who ran second beat in the head in the 23 Caulfield Cup, and same connections with Out of Fight, who won the Melbourne Cup for Freedman. Ran a close third to Giavoletto and Kalpana last start, which I think they both ran in the Arc, so that's pretty high quality form. It was on a synthetic track. Second at Goodwood over Group 3 in a Group 3 behind LRC the start before. What do you make of Meydaan?
Yeah, so I suppose he probably comes here as that lightly raced, I've got a bit of upside type horse. The Giavoletto effort, obviously in the Arc, he ran 4th, so that's sort of, you're going to give him a tick for that, I suppose. And Kalpana, I thought she was a great chance in the Arc, but she probably didn't get the right setup for her. So that form is good. The Al Azi run time-wise was excellent, but again, sort of when you go and watch the race, you sort of say, well, he had every possible, and the big worry I've got is a horse like Candleford, ambient friendly, hasn't found his form since a 3-year-old in Arabian Crown got beat 20 lengths. It might have only been a 1-horse race and something had to run second, and that's what I've put it down to. Al-Azi is a very good horse. He's been around forever, and he's a bit like I reference him all the time, but like a happy clapper. One of those type of horses that shows up every year, just keeps running to the same level. But he was 15-2 there. He was sort of the third outside, or sort of there was 5 in the race, and he was the 4th roughest in the race. He was okay. I think he's probably been overbet, and for mine, if you compare him to a horse like Middle Earth or Vauban, they are chalk and cheese. So, look, he gets the suck run. At Zini, he's not one of mine. And European riders, as a rule, generally don't do well in Australia. for the fly-in, fly-out sort of missions. I'm more than happy to take him on. He got a bit of a ratings bump or increase after he ran third at Kempton, but again, all-weather form means nothing for turf racing. And again, behind him were Tasmania, Candleford and Sadavia, and none of them you'd even consider in a race like this. So I think it's just he's been overbet because he's got some type of time form rating, but you usually find with time form, Ireland and Irish horses are given ratings higher than they should have because it's sort of more based in that jurisdiction. And I think you're happy to be against him. The Royal Dubai run at Newbury was terrible. He got beat 9 lengths. He was in the market that day. I don't mind that Hatton race at Royal Ascot, but he did get beat 5.5. I suspect this horse just wants a little bit more give in the ground than what he's going to get at Caulfield.
Yeah, okay.
Like if it was a dead 5-6, yep, I want to come into him. But you know the Al Azi run, it was on a nice soft ground, and just
it was on the synthetic.
I think they're very much overplayed these ones off the plane this year, and if he doesn't do well here, I don't see any future for him from a Melbourne Cup point of view.
If he did run well, is he more of a Caulfield Cup horse anyway?
Definitely. Yep.
All right, next one is Absurde. Willie Mullins is coming here for his third time, but this is the first time he's running the Caulfield Cup. He ran 7th, beaten 5.5 lengths in the 23 Melbourne Cup, and then he ran 5th, beaten 1.7 lengths in the 24 Melbourne Cup. I don't know if that's improvement or if that's just, that Knight's Choice Melbourne Cup was maybe 3 lengths weaker than them without a fight cup. But what do you think about him? He seems more like the longer distance stayer of Mullins jumper type horse, and maybe this is just the prep run for the Melbourne Cup, which might help him like it does with most horses. But what are your thoughts on Absurde?
Yeah, so post Melbourne Cup, and remembering we got the 100 to 1 outsider, wins the Melbourne Cup in a slow run race, big bunch finish. Arguably there was 1 or 2 horses that should have won that didn't. So I don't think that's real reliable. He then went jumping, as they do with them over there. He ran 3rd in a big handicap, Group 3 level, won a big handicap after that. And then he come back to Chester and ran into Illinois. Now, Illinois trained off later in the season, but that figure there would run top 3 in a Caulfield Cup. And the thing I find with Willie Mullins, I reckon he tried to do it last year with Vauban and he got the bad race and the bad ride. I reckon it's been a real project of his to have this horse sharper this year than what he was previously. Okay. And to me, on the times, he is sharper. So that's why I would be super keen. If this horse lobbed 4th the fence, I think he's going to be right in the finish and create some nice value from an exotics point of view. I reckon the run the other day at August was just this is the barrier trial for a Caulfield and Melbourne Cup. And he's not a bad horse, so I wouldn't put a line through this horse at all.
All right, interesting. Yeah, we'll certainly drawn barrier 1. He could get a really nice run here if he's got enough speed to kind of at least be no further back than 3 pairs back. So good push there for Absurde. Land Legend, he won the Group 1 Metropolitan last year over 2,400. Then he was 3rd in this race on a bog track that probably didn't suit him drawing inside that year either. Doesn't seem to have replicated those ratings this year. He just doesn't appear to be going as well. What are your thoughts on Land Legend?
I just got him as a bit of a wet tracker, Dean. So you look at his efforts on firm ground, and look, he won straight off the plane in a really good run when James Ferguson had him 2 years ago now. And all his other runs, he only gets beat 7 and 5 and 5 and 11 and 7 and 4, but he's never also really looked likely. And arguably there was a couple of those that were a lot weaker than this. So for me, I don't like him, but if you like, he ran 8th in the Melbourne Cup, I suppose. I'm assuming that's where they're going again. From memory, he's got a few head noises parade-wise and things like that. So
I thought he just pulled too hard in the Melbourne Cup last year. Whether they're just targeting for one race and a really slow campaign and just trying to train him to run that 2 miles.
Yeah,
I get the feeling they're not really interested in anything other than the Melbourne Cup and just trying to see if he can stay. But he failed in the he failed last year, and I thought it was just because he went too hard. But like you say, maybe he needs a wet track as well.
Yeah, I think he's ground dependent, and for me, I won't entertain him from a Melbourne Cup point of view because he won't have the miles in his legs like a lot of these Australian horses.
Alrighty, number 7, Zardozi. She gets the blinkers on. I've always found with her, for whatever reason, she seemed to be a real Rose Hill horse and really hated Randwick. And I get the feeling that she's a Flemington horse in Melbourne and doesn't like Caulfield.
Yeah, right.
But that's just the impression I get of her. She's sort of trucking along okay. What are your thoughts on Zardozi?
I just can't catch her, and she just looks, maybe she's just going through the motions. But look, if you just click on a 2,400 metre record alone, she won the Oaks with just the most amazing ride from James McDonald, which was 2,500. She then ran second at Randwick to Autumn Angel, so 2,400, so that's another tick. Then Land Legend beat her at 2,400 the next start that she saw, 2,400. And then obviously she was well held behind Duke de Cesar, Buckaroo and Land Legend in last year's Caulfield Cup. So her 2,400 metre record on paper is sexy enough, but I just question whether that form's deep enough. And I don't know if I've seen enough this prep, Dean. And yeah, I thought she really maybe overachieved in the Melbourne Cup to start $6.50. I know she was well beaten 7 lengths, but I never had a great chance in that either. So I don't know. I think her best is behind us, and it's been a while since she's bloody finished in the top 3 as well. So
Yeah.
Do you give her that sort of hope? Like you could argue, if you like her at Rose Hill, you could argue Caulfield's a little bit more similar to Rose Hill.
I can't really make why.
Yeah.
She's just through her career run really well at Rose Hill, and she's gone awful at Randwick every time, apart from when she's got up to 2,400 and she's run okay.
Yeah.
Then her Flemington runs have usually been pretty good
Yeah.
for the most part in her career, and Caulfield's just been a bit plain most of the time. So for whatever reason, I feel like she's a horse of a course's horse, and I could only ever back her at Rose Hill or Flemington. But there's not really that many races for her now these days.
No, blinkers go on. So whether that's we can't get her going, so this is a Hail Mary.
Yeah. Plus different trainer, obviously. That's the one difference.
Yeah.
Karen Ma from James Cummings. So
interestingly, she hasn't seen the blinkers before, which is very unusual to be 28 starts blinkers first time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can't have her, but
I'm a line through her.
Horse.
Yeah.
Adelaide River has some interesting form from my basic assessment. There's a second in a Group 1 at the Curragh over 2,400 to Auguste Rodin, which is pretty good form, I think. He might have beaten Buckaroo once.
He did.
And sort of hasn't really replicated that form in Australia, although, I thought his run into Kingston Town was a big improvement, and then he wasn't bad in the Turnbull, beaten 3 lengths. What did you assess of Adelaide River from his overseas form?
Yeah, well, if we're backing me on his overseas form, he's in the top 4 betting here, and he's a huge chance. So he had a very, especially for Chris Lees, he had a very peculiar start to this preparation. Interesting, they had him in a 2,000 metre race end of June. They scratched him. He went back to the trials. And then I think we had one of those called off meetings that were abandoned. And that was, I think, 2,000 metre as well. And then 7 days later, he shows up in a dirty rotten 1,400 metres. Ran okay, got beat 4 lengths, which was never going to suit because he was obviously fitness-wise ready to go 2,000. I hated the idea of running him in the 1,600 second up, and he did nothing. But then he went super in that Birdman Etna Rosso race, which I know you say Etna Rosso, but Etna Rosso might be in some really purple patch of form at the moment, and Birdman started favourite the other day in a Metrop, so I think that's good enough. He did lead on my figures in an exceptionally slow run race the other day, but I don't think that tells you anything out of that Turnbull race. So, again, that means I've got to go and look at his overseas 2,400 metre stuff, and it's 100% in this race up to his eyeballs, and he's going to jump 40-1 probably on the day. So,
is he more of a 2,400 horse? Because he's had like 4 2,000 runs here, but he hasn't actually got out to this trip yet.
Yeah, I think he's had a few issues. And I agree with you. I think he's always been like, he ran second one day to a horse called Feed the Flame, and at the time it looked like it was Winks, and was arc favourite for quite a while. And he had some proper form. Like, he was a proper weight for age Group 1 horse. Yeah. So, as you say, this is the first time they've been able to get the work into him and get his miles into his legs. Look, I know he's knockies. He's had 2 wins and he's a non-winner, but in a race that's not a vintage year, with him down on 54 kilos, again, he's a bit like that Middle Earth. If you can take him a little bit on trust, and at least he's shown something over Middle Earth, I think, this prep. I think he's okay.
Yeah. All right, good push for Adelaide River. Banker's Choice, I think, gets the free pass in because it won the Mornington Cup, led on a really slow Anzac Classic, 28 lengths below par first half, and still couldn't win over 2,400 last start. I've got a pen through him.
Yeah, that's just not good enough form, is it?
Yeah. Next one's Deakin. He's certainly a horse plenty have been talking about from a Melbourne Cup perspective. His overseas form wasn't at group level, and he sort of won a Roy Higgins, but he only just beat Berkshire Breeze, which for me is not particularly good form, and Berkshire Breeze sort of ran better in that race, I thought. It was an improved run. The Turnbull was only beaten 3 lengths, but like you said, it's such a slow race, and those on paces, maybe they're all just flattered being there. I'm not a huge push on Deakin for either this race or the Melbourne Cup, but what do you say?
Look, when you look at him from a 2,400 metre, he ticks quite a few boxes. He's got a real sexy record there of 4 wins from 7 runs or something.
Yeah.
Moonee Valley run, I thought, was some nice merit when he won way back in February last year.
It was 6.5 lengths above standard, won by 5 lengths or something. It was
yeah. Unfortunately, we've had 43 runners out of that race for only 2 or 3 winners, so he beat nothing there. But I thought time-wise he was okay. And I was a bit like you on his run the other day. I sort of, what did you learn out of that? It probably didn't answer any real questions. Obviously, they've again set him from a Melbourne Cup point of view, but I give him none in a Melbourne Cup. He's just not good enough. And look, he gets a suck draw here. Is he one that flops into 6th or 8th? But I think if he ran that would be a good result for the owners. But not for me. Yeah,
and no improvement to the Melbourne Cup for you?
No, definitely not.
Anything he's done?
No, definitely not. I was a bit like you. I just thought, especially that, is it the Roy Higgins? Is that the name of the race?
I
thought they were entitled to be a lot stronger than what they were, and it was just a battling run, and 35 runners out of the race for 2 provincial winners. That probably backs up that as well. He didn't beat much there.
Yeah. All right, the next horse is 11 Golden Snap, Japanese import. I love these Japanese horses. I think you do too. 6-year-old grey mare. She on paper doesn't seem to have the form that some of the others have had. She's run 4th in a Group 2. She's run 6th in a Group 2. But apart from that, she sort of just won handicaps from what I'm reading here. And so I suppose class is a bit of a query. I think they need to run top 8 to qualify for the Melbourne Cup to pass the that ballot clause.
Yes.
I think that's right. We've seen some very good Japanese horses coming over here. They had Maharaktis and the Pop Rocks and the Delta Blues, and then we've had Warp Speed last year that was harder to get a read on, but you had a good handle on, and you were very, very confident for the Melbourne Cup. What can you tell us about Golden Snap in relation to any of those?
Well, I'm shit scared this year because I've got a very good friend who does a lot of form in Japan himself, and he's quite bullish on the horse.
Okay.
I'm very much facts and figures and times. And I love the Japanese racing because they run them so genuinely, and you usually get to be exposed or proven correct if you can find a good horse. This horse has just never run time at all. I had this argument with my mate, but look, she's ran no time. The only thing I can think of, they're bringing her out here to get covered by an Australian sire and going back home, but surely they're not doing that. But look, if it's got any form that you want to hang your hat on, yes, it's at 2 mile. Some of those earlier runs, sort of back January last year and into 23, they were over the shorter distances, but it just does not run time. It doesn't run a sectional in a slow race, a fast race, in an average tempo race. It's a shame that it's not harder in the market, because I think you could make really good money out of laying the hell out of it, and it's not going to feature for me. I really don't know what it's doing here. And I could be completely wrong, but I've looked at it 3 times, the videos, the sectionals. There's just no substance.
So 2,400 too short, but even over 2 miles, you just don't see any figures there that.
Well, it's just a whacker. It's a Moonee Valley, not even a Moonee Valley Cup. It's a Moonee Valley Friday night 3,000 metre horse.
Okay.
So, they are good horses over there, but they don't have the depth at up over that trip. So I'd suggest it's an absolute out-and-out whacker, because there's bugger all horses that run 2 mile up there. It's been running around and doing its best, but it's got nothing as far as I'm concerned. I would be more confident to say to you that it'll run closer to last than midfield.
Alrighty. Good insight down to Golden Snap. Next horse is Revelare, the rare Aussie-bred, Aussie-trained horse who's won 8 from 12. Won the Hotham to get himself into the Melbourne Cup. They ran very slow time. It was minus 18 lengths overall that time. And then the Bart Cummings, I know he had a big weight and they didn't want to win it. But I thought it was pretty poor and, in what was obviously a hot tempo race. The big plus from a Melbourne Cup perspective is, you obviously always like a horse that's been trained by someone who's won the race. So that's something that he's got for it, with Hickmott having won it a couple of times for Lloyd Williams. But I don't know, I'm not too enamoured by this horse in this race or the Melbourne Cup, but do you have anything for him?
Obviously, we've got the big dilemma, 2 sort of feeder races. We had the Valiant King race where they went like scalded cats, and then the race after the Delius race where they crawled. So personally, I'm more inclined to find a horse out of the really fast run race, because they've had a proper run.
Yeah.
Especially for if they take off at the 800 or the 1,000 and make it a proper Caulfield Cup.
Yeah.
But just looking at him, he was 116th quickest last 200, 115th quickest last 400, and 116th quickest last 6 and 8 on the card. Like, he couldn't pick his bloody legs up, this horse. So, we saw when Weary won the Melbourne Cup, he had that really fast run lead-up race with Prince of Penzance come out of a Moonee Valley Cup. But so there's positives to that type of run, but when you cannot get from a ranking point of view, out of the hundreds, that just says they've got absolutely none, not only here, but in a Melbourne Cup. And it's a shame, because he's going to be one of the few horses that's going to tick the 10,000 metre box of the local horses. I would have loved, I agree with you, coming out of those hot quick races is a big plus, and we'll talk about Valiant King soon, and it's probably a big plus for Gilded Water. Was probably the outstanding one of that race to set that tempo and still stick on for third. I just think Revelare, with where he sort of settled there, sort of 6th, if he just sort of finished a bit closer, 3 lengths off him rather than 7 lengths off him, then it would have been a big plus run with that 59 kgs. But like you said, I just think he was just a bit plain there and a bit disappointing. But yeah, like you compare him to, you mentioned Gilded Water, like he went 13 or 14 lengths quicker, and Revelare come home maybe half a length, if not a neck, quicker the last 200. That horse was out on his legs, and he still couldn't pass the tiring leader.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's a bit stinky for myself. So happy to be around him.
Alrighty, 13. River of Stars comes with some interesting staying form. Sort of won a Group 3 over 2,800, won a listed over 2,400, had some 2,800 metre Group 1 placing at Longchamp. Came here first up in the Tancred, ran 7th when it sort of raced a bit keen So that wasn't a bad run. And then third, in the Sydney Cup, second up, straight off the plane. And they often don't run that well straight off the plane for Wallace. That was quite good.
Yep.
She's sort of just been running in races too short for including the Turnbull last start, but wasn't awful. I get the feeling like they've had a very much one-track mind, that this is, Waller's Melbourne Cup horse along with Valiant King in terms of a horse that's actually going to stay the distance. Uh, what do you make of the 7-year-old mare River of Stars?
Look, I thought nearly her best race in her career was in the Sydney Cup.
Yeah,
The long shot form, honestly, that some of that stuff, even though it says it's Group 2 and Group 1 and Group 3, a lot of that stuff was absolute rubbish listed handicap stuff.
yeah,
So there's no real substance there. It's one of those horses that can trick you. You look on the form and think, shit, geez, it's got some good form. It's all of these group races, but they're just all on those extra week group races.
yeah,
And nothing's ever come out of them. It probably just has been a little bit flattered. It had a little bit of as you mentioned, it was quite good off the plane, and that and the Dubai Honour run were solid. I don't think it's done enough for this prep, and I just don't think it's anywhere near this quality. So she's getting on. Yulong just probably wants another runner. They haven't got one for the race, so I think it's their elect and EHR type thing. But yeah, that's it.
okay, and not keen for the Melbourne Cup either.
Not at all. No, won't run the trip.
Yeah,
It had its chance in the Sydney Cup, and maybe we'll chat before the Melbourne Cup, but yeah, at this stage I don't like it at all. Won't have the miles in the legs is the other negative, which we'll work against it.
Alrighty, 14 Birdman ran third in the Group 2 over 2,800 at Ascot behind Illinois. He's sort of came over here for a Melbourne Cup in 24, ran the Geelong Cup, pulled up lame, and ran in the Sydney Cup, ran down the track. I thought after his Kingston Town win, from a historical profiling perspective, he profiled like the winner of the Metrop for sure, the way they'd snuck him in with 51.5, but he drew the outside gate, which made it really tough. But I still thought he settled back second last, and I wasn't that impressed with his finish. I thought obviously Vauban and even more Felons were better than him, and he had a lot less weight. So I just thought he was a bit disappointing there. What do you make of Birdman, and what do you know of him from overseas, and what do you think of him as a horse?
I nearly had him bought at about €300, which is about 500 Aussie, and I would have been excited to own him at that. Current connections, I think he went to Ascot after that, and then only got beat, I don't know, a couple of lengths in a Group 2, and then the current connections bought him, and he was then disappointing at Leopardstown, got lapped. I was surprised they bought him, because it was a nice 3-year-old that had some ability, but for whatever reason, they obviously, because they paid so much, I think they were sort of kept the Melbourne Cup dream alive, and it didn't surprise me to see him run so poorly at Geelong. His next prep for Waller, I thought, was okay, but he was one of those runs, wasn't he, that in probably all of those races, he never looked like winning any of them. He was solid against, Alicante at the time, was running them along, and he was one of those ones that were running on, but, never really featured. And I think he's been a bit more of a project this time, and obviously he's got some ability, but as you say, I think more Felons and Vauban were superior runs to him by a long way.
Yeah.
There's not a real weight difference here. He gets an extra kilo here, but that's neither here nor there with the bigger horses. Is that the right form race? Like, are we saying the Metrop's the better form race than the Turnbull, or not? What do you think?
Well, I think it more comes down to what sets them up better for the race. And I think the Turnbull just isn't a race that set them up well. I think you find, I remember Boom Time won the Caulfield Cup coming off leading a Herbert Power, and it was no good. And it led a Herbert Power, and they ran 15 lengths above standard, ran fourth, and then it backed up and won. Like you said, Prince of Penzance won a Melbourne Cup coming off a hot Moonee Valley race where it sort of led and ran second. At the end of the day, from setting up perspective, the Metrop was pretty standard going out and coming home. Turnbull was really slow. It's a bit like the Mackay Diva. They all walked in that race, and then they couldn't win the Turnbull. They walked again. They're just not getting the right prep. So I think the Metrop is a better lead-in race simply because they've had a bit more of a run. These horses coming off a 2000 and coming off a soft 2000, and that's not what you want. So I do think the Metrop's a better lead up than the Turnbull for this race.
Well, given that, then I think you could include Birdman as a genuine top 5 chance. Like he did, as you said, he sort of profiled well for the Metrop, got the pineapple with the bad gate. This is a little bit harder, but I suppose the big positive that he's got for this run is he just does no work midfield, does he? Maybe somewhere around the favourite, and he's going to be 17 or 20 to 1, and the favourite's under $3 at the moment. So from a value point of view, I'd probably rather be with him than the favourite.
Yeah. No, makes sense. All right, the next is the favourite, half yours, about $2.90, I think, at the moment. 1-6 from 13. Sire Saint Jean, I was reading today, I think was worth about $3,000 for a service fee. Might be up to 11,000 now, but only covers about 80 horses in 5 years or something. Not regularly bred. I don't think the dam was much good either. This was, I think, what was that guy's name? It passed away, and so Kieran Maher actually lost his horse, and McAvoy bought it.
Yes.
Won the Caloundra Cup by 4.7 lengths. McKenna.
McKenna.
I was thinking of 4.7 lengths, won the Caloundra Cup. That's the race I think that Knight's Choice came out of as well last year. And then has that Queensland Fitness, which for the Spring Carnival just every year proves to be enormously valuable. Bolted in the naturalism, doesn't beat anything, but I have to say it was impressive. I thought the Turnbull run was good. I think he's the kind of horse that if you've got a futures ticket on him, then you're happy. You're very happy with where you're at, but he's obviously very short here. What do you make of him, and what do you think of him?
I'm still kicking myself. I looked really hard at him when that Cole McKenna dispersal was going through, and I just remember thinking at the time, he bought probably too much for me, but geez, he looks bloody cheap now. The hard thing to get your head around is he started $3.50 in a Caloundra Cup, which we know was not much good. Don Diego come out of it and won a Grafton Cup, yes. But how do you take $3.50 there and then take sub $3 in a Caulfield Cup? The thing I probably wanted to highlight was I love looking at these horses at 2,000 metres and trying to guess if they're going to run further. And we really don't have too much of a guide outside from what you just sort of said. It's a staying type sire. But yeah, they mostly get ground. They mostly want give in the track. They generally not, they don't, a lot of them don't like firm tracks, I've noticed. And Caloundra, he was like 64th best last 800 on the card, 52nd best last 600 on the card. The indicator that I always look for is last 200 and last 1,000. And while the last 200 he was exceptionally well, there was a couple of really bad rides in that race where the leaders give themselves no hope and he just sat back and pounced and did what he had to do. But he quickened very sharply, and this is why I think he went so good in the Turnbull. I feel he's a better horse in a real sit and sprint race rather than a drag him out, test yourself staying horse. And to me, he profiles like that. So, yes, at Caloundra, he was sixth best last 200, and he was good. But his last 600, he went 12.52 between the 6 and the 4, and then this huge spurt of 4 to the 200 of 11.06. So that's the best part of 7 or 8 lengths. And he proved that in the Turnbull. He can do that. Like, he can quicken on a dime really quick, but then he sort of gave a little bit of it back late at Caloundra. And then I was quite interested to see, obviously, he was well down the ballot order, so he was a kitchen sink job in that Berkshire Breeze Grand Piano race where it was the naturalism. And look, he was good there. Look, you can't say he wasn't good. He still wasn't best of the day or anything like that. And it was a day of very fast times, I felt.
Yeah.
And I just really don't see, unless there's a big liability for the bookmakers, I'm probably just happy to be against him purely from a price point of view. You know, if it was $11, yeah, you know, I'll have something on him. But, geez, $2.60, $2.80, and I hear a few people today saying, oh, he's the obvious and, you know, it could even start shorter. I just don't see it. But I may be wrong, but to me, his only real ace is he's got that Queensland residual fitness coming into the carnival, and he put a line through last start. The Caulfield run, it's okay, but I don't think that means he deserves to be $2.70 here.
Yeah, it seems very short for me as well. I mean, I think he's got to be a winning chance with that residual fitness and what he's done. But I just can't take that sort of price. A horse like him in the Caulfield Cup with some of the other quality in this race. What about? There's a part of me that you know, unless Vauban wins, I also want, but that if Vauban doesn't win this race, that Half Yours bolts in, and then Sir Delius bolts in the Cox Plate, and then we've got two really short favourites in the Melbourne Cup that I can bet around, because I think Sir Delius, he profiles to me like a whole lot of horses who've run second and third in the Melbourne Cup.
Yep.
You know, it doesn't profile to me Sir Delius like, you know, the winner of the Melbourne Cup.
Okay.
And Half Yours, like if Half Yours came out and, you know, he's got the nice draw, he's got the low weight and won this race by 3 lengths, you know, would you think he was a Melbourne Cup chance?
Based on his fitness levels, I would certainly elevate him. I still wouldn't have him a top 2 chance. I think from the moment the race was given some nominations, there's only ever been 2 or 3 chances in the race. Genuine top level draw, world class Group 1 horses, and then there's another 4 that on their right day, their right conditions, everything happened to work out. They could maybe sneak up and challenge, but it's looking a very skinny race at this stage. And I think if he can't win here, he's absolutely zero hope in a Caulfield Cup, in a Melbourne Cup. But
yeah,
I personally would be happy to be against him. I'd include him in some wider exotics, but that would be it. I still don't see him anywhere near the quality of those other runs. He reminds me of that. I can't remember the name of the horse. Mark Kavanagh had a horse that won a heap in a row, started favourite in the Caulfield Cup, might have went off in the gates even and ended up doing nothing. But Maldivian maybe, or no, I don't think it was Maldivian. I think he might have had another one, but he just doesn't. I just don't think he has the quality of some of these other horses. Yeah. And there'll be a few other quality horses coming from a Melbourne Cup point of view. And down with, you know, the weight's raised a little bit, but that means they're also compressed. I think there's only going to be a limited compression between the top and bottom, and I don't think he's got enough quality. He would have to come out and win 3 or 4 for me to have another look at him. But like I said, I still question him. The Sunshine Coast run didn't scream, I'm a strong sustainer, a 600 and 800 metre run. And that's typically what you need for these proper staying races. Not this bullshit, hold up, get a bum, pop out at the 200 and just show off your turn of foot. That's all he's done at this stage for mine, and that's why I'm more than happy to be against him.
Alrighty, so number 16. This is your other horse in the race, Royal Supremacy. You see, he had a second in the Group 3 behind Gia Valletto at Newmarket, which is nice form, and then he's come here off his first preparation off the plane and won you a Group 1 Metrop after a good second in the Newcastle Cup. So tell us about what you liked about Royal Supremacy, buying him from overseas, and then, you know, what you make of him here and then the Melbourne Cup.
This horse was he was a good horse overseas, very consistent. But to me, he was always going to be a better Australian horse. Just a couple of things I look for. He was more doing that over there than and that probably didn't suit him. So it doesn't surprise me that he's got to this level, albeit I have to say I think he's the weak one in the market, or one of the weak ones in the market. He got a lovely ride in the Metrop with 50. To be fair, he was very, very strong through the line. So it's not a distance query. I'm now just starting to get a little bit worried that he's very, very deep into his prep. And the problem with this horse is he can be a mad puller. I actually liked him from a Metrop point of view last start, because when you watch him at Newcastle, he loomed up at the 200, and some of the other connections thought he didn't handle Wyong, which is why he didn't go to the Wyong Cup. And that was very telling in the Newcastle Cup. He just blew out condition-wise. So it was no surprise. I think the Smarties found that and saw that, and he was able to sort of get a very suck run on a suitable tempo for him. And look, he was good, but for mine, I think more Felons or Vauban win the race more times than what Royal Supremacy would have if you run it 100 times. And
he raced a bit keen, so I thought it was still a good effort to win, given he settled better maybe than he had in previous runs, but he still wasn't perfect, was he?
No, definitely not. And I think that's, if there's any stage in the race where they want to pull up, he's susceptible to want to get that head up and let's get trucking.
Yeah.
So I just don't think he's quite there yet. He's had no racing, this horse. He's only had 13 starts or so, and he's very consistent, and he's a nice horse.
What did you buy him for? Was it more, next year? What did you think when you bought him that he would get to?
Yeah, it was more a case of he's going to be an exceptional Australian horse, and he'll be a really good go through the grades horse, where when you buy your Vaubans and your Al Riffas, you just know they're coming to bang. They can plonk into any race and be more than, a top 4 chance in just about any race they run in. Where this guy was always going to be, he always had those little quirks where he wanted to get a bit keen and over race and that type of thing. But interestingly,
has he exceeded your expectations?
No, because I always thought he'd be a proper Group 2 horse here. And okay, he's won a Group 1, so that's a good bonus. But I still see him probably just as that 2 lengths off the really good horses. Yeah. And at this stage, at least.
And did you buy him as a 2,400 or a 3,200 metre horse?
No, definitely a 2,000, 2,400 metre horse.
Okay, so he runs here and probably goes in the Melbourne Cup, does he anyway? But
he'll go in the Melbourne Cup, but it was interesting to see in the run on. It's one of the best things to look at in these staying type races is past the post. He was as strong as anything the other day in the Metro. And sectionally, when you look at him, you're sort of saying, well, geez, there's no queries on him in that regard. So I wouldn't be worried if you like him. The draw's still more than suitable for him. And look, he's a top 5 chance, but again, if your Vaubans, your Middle Earth, your Adelaide River, Birdman even, they've probably just got a little bit better ratings than him at present or previously. Okay. So, so that's where I probably see him. I don't want to tell you not to back him, but I won't be backing him. And for mine, I've just got him 2 lengths off 3 or 4 of these.
Okay. Alrighty, 17 Valiant King. Haven't done a lot in Australia until his Bart Cummings win. Won by 2.8 lengths. They run plus 19 above standard time. Just a very, very strong race. He did run second to Vauban, and I think Vauban gave him about 5 kilos, but he ran second, beaten 1.5 lengths to Vauban over 2,400 in the Group 3. What did you make of this horse when he was overseas? He came here. He came off the plane for Joseph O'Brien, ran 6th in the Caulfield Cup, then went to Waller, and he's just sort of not done much. Although the word was that he ran 3rd in the Chairman's last prep, and then Waller had declared him for the Sydney Cup, and then he had a little issue when they had to scratch him. So I think they thought he had ability, but what did you think of him as a horse before he came over here?
Yeah, he really only had one run. It was very flattering to run second to Vauban. Again, it was a smallish field, and something had to run second there. He's run against Desert Hero. There's a horse over there called Desert Hero, and before he had his injuries, that was exceptional. That was his career best run at Ascot.
Okay.
But I find Ascot, it's a real trap for people. Ascot form's a bit like Chester form, a bit like Moonee Valley or Canterbury form. It's only ever any good at that track. So it can be very tricky. Different undulations, different type of track. Interestingly, that, and he was always, to be honest, he profiled like one of those horses that had some sort of ability. I think he was well sold, did nothing that first prep. And then you notice second prep, he had that Equinox on. So I dare say Waller was probably fighting a losing battle from a feet point of view, which happens to a lot of them, a hell of a lot of them. And then Equinox has gone off this prep, blinkers on the other day. I can't believe he won. It was like, that was his second run in the prep, going 1,500 to 2,500.
Yeah.
I think he's paid unders at 50 to 1, to be honest.
It looked like there's some money for him. He's sort of gone from 150s to 50s. So
yeah. So, look, to me, he doesn't have enough miles in his legs, but he comes out of that just brutal race. Like, does that flatten you, do you think, Dean? Second up in your prep when you're running into those type of sectionals? Like, he's obviously fit enough to do it, but
I don't know, because he sat last and he just, he had cover the whole way and he just kind of sat and he hooked out. So he didn't have to do it tough, So I'm not sure if it flattens him. I am surprised they're running here. I think they just I think they've changed their mind. I think if they're really keen on Melbourne Cup, which was always the plan, like you say, he ran over 1,500 on the 30th of August, and he did a 35-day break. He's gone to 2,500. If he was mine, I would have thought, give him a bit more of a break, run him in the Moonee Valley Cup, and then give him, then go to the Melbourne Cup instead. They're backing up here 14 days after that run, and then you go get to the Cup. It's almost like they've gone, well, maybe let's just try and win this race, and I just don't know if that's the better thing for him from a Melbourne Cup perspective, but. I don't know. I look at that time and that run and Blinker's first time and just go, well, gee, you almost have to keep him on side. Like, how can you not? But yeah, he's just an interesting one.
He was just amazing in that race. He just sustained the run, defied everything that he should have been able to do, and ran away from the race. There was horses running there 7 and 8 lengths slower the last 200 than he was. And I know he set out the back and did no work, but geez, you build up a lot of lactic acid in their legs at doing that, and it's hard to sustain that type of run. So for mine, I don't like the 14-day turnaround. Like, he was into that fresh. I don't know if he's done too much running in those fast run races on a quicker turnaround. He's always underperformed for mine. So they're asking him to do something on a 14-day turnaround that he's never really done anything of note. Probably his best effort was maybe that Chairman's behind Alicante and Birdman. But look, again, there was bugger all horses in good form that time. I'm like you. It scares me that they're coming here, but my head just says you've got to be flat, and you can't repeat 2 of those in a row.
Yeah, fair enough. And number 18, Plymouth, who ran second in the Herbert Power, they ran 21 lengths below stand in that race. It was really weak, so I can't have him.
No, I'd like to see the trainer do well, because he's obviously they need the money, the Hayes boys. But outside of that, no, look, it's the 7-day backup. I love. I'm just in love with it. I'm surprised more of them don't do it, but it's just not quite good enough. That horse, it's sort of a 6th to 10th type chance, only because it's on the 7-day backup.
All right, so who do you like from a betting perspective here in this year's Caulfield Cup?
Look, I think it's got limited genuine winning chances. And I say it every year, I love playing those wide exotics, because you get a couple of those that the market's disregarded to fill some minors, and you can get a return. So that'll be the way I'll be playing it. I'm more than happy to take on the favourite. He might win, but he's way too short for a horse that's still got to tick a box that to suggest that he can handle a an 800 sustained run like Valiant King did the other day. So I think it's your class horses. You've got to focus amongst them, and I could see an upset this year. I think a horse like Vauban is just the wrong price. I know he's my horse, but it's not a vintage year. If he runs to his ratings of last prep, which I think he's primed to do, I just don't think you're going to miss with Vauban. And I really think sort of some of those dangers, a horse like we mentioned, Adelaide River, Middle Earth, they're a couple to have on side, and definitely including Birdman. So my top four would be Vauban, Birdman, Adelaide River, and Middle Earth.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I mean, nothing improves them like ownership, but I do like Vauban as well. I think I do think he profiles quite nicely here, and I think he's one to beat. I don't mean Meydaan. I sort of I bet Westwood and Blows the year he got Peter Nose, and I think the Sables sort of know what they need over here. I appreciate what you say. He gets a suck run, and I don't know, I think of the imports, I guess he's the main chance. I guess you've given me enough confidence that Presage Nocturne and the Japanese horse Gold Snapper are probably not in it. So I've sort of got Vauban and Meydaan as probably the best two bets. Half yours can win, but I don't like him at that price. And I think Valiant King's kind of the one that's just a big query coming off that impressive run. If you sort of take it on face value, then I guess he's in the race. But I think I'll just quickly say to a good luck to Jace Lydon, who won our competition. He's got 2 tickets worth $5,000 to attend the Caulfield Cup, and he's a 1% owner of the day for Vauban in the Cup, and we'll also have a Melbourne Cup promo. So good luck to Jace. I thought quickly, if you've just got a few more minutes, Luke, I just want to cover some of the main Melbourne Cup horses. If you got a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Firstly, Sir Delius, from a Melbourne Cup perspective, is obviously a superstar horse. My thinking, I know people compare him to Fiorente, but Fiorente ran second in his first Melbourne Cup and had another year of seasoning before winning it. So Delius sort of reminds me of like Incentivize, who ran second, beaten 4.3 lengths in the Melbourne Cup. Hartnell ran third, beaten 4.4 lengths. Criterion ran third, beaten a length. So You Think ran third, beaten 3.3 lengths. That was sort of all favourite. Northerly, they decided not to run in the end. Like, really high quality weight for age horses over 1,800 to 2,400, like, superstar horses that sort of run second or third. Like, I just get that feeling from him. But what do you think of Sir Delius as a real 3,200 metre horse in his first Australian prep here in the Melbourne Cup? He's obviously well weighted in the class horse, but is he different?
Yeah, he's different. He was different class over there in Europe, and if he stayed in Europe, I would have been all over him from an arc point of view. He was an absolute freak from the moment he stepped out, albeit on soft ground, but he was running sectionals that were quicker than the group sprinters on the same day, and he was this raw, inexperienced horse, and obviously very well bought. He was bought out of the sales for about converted about 3 million. So he's not a cheap horse, but they've got that back in spades. He's just got this amazing knack, that horse, just to sustain a run and just keep coming and keep coming. I don't know about him from a Cox Plate point of view, because we saw him maybe not get round the bend at Caulfield. Yeah. And prior to that, he'd only seen Chantilly and Longchamp as his other tracks. I thought that Tim Clark ride in Doomben was no good, and he still won despite it. So I thought there's plenty of merit there. And we've touched on it a few times. Having any type of ability going into a Brisbane Carnival feeds so well for the major races down in both Sydney and Melbourne. And I'm just in love with that whole program that they've done. They've given him a look. So he obviously would have been in work April. And the fact that he ran in Doomben means he would have had 7 or 10 days off at most. So he's had this huge base of fitness. And to cap that off, he's going to go close to being close to that 10,000 metres. So I think Gay's learnt from the Fiorente days in that regard. Fiorente come out here the first year and she could not get him going. It was well publicised, and she had him barrier trolling in March and April, just trying to keep him in work for the year that she eventually did win the Cup with him, albeit she got a really slow run race that year too. But so he's elite, Sir Delius, and I suppose from a weights point of view, he's probably going to be well favoured, and yeah, he's a proper horse.
There's no question he's a superstar horse and he's well weighted, but 2 miles, like, is there any doubt in your mind at all that he?
Not really. He's got a pedigree that says he'll, from a 2,400 metre profile in Europe, and having touched on, they do run them slow over there. Like he ran into, there's a horse over there called Sozi, and I love him, and he just had this ability to rattle off sectionals over 800 metres that most horses can't do. Protectionist was always like that. He could do that, and they just stand out. So
as a 2 mile horse compared to incentivize Hartnell, and so you think he's at least 5 lengths better over 2 miles, because that's what he's going to look at it. If Incentivize was beaten 4.3 lengths and Hartnell was beaten 4.4.
Yeah, for mine, Hartnell was always going to be a query. Incentivize was the same. That I agree with you. They were too brilliant.
So you think was beaten 3.3 lengths. But he's different.
Look, it's important to remember we don't have the quality of. It sounds silly. I sound like an old fella here, but we don't have the quality of those years as well. This year we got everyone gets a prize as well, so that's going to create even more rubbish in the race. So the fact that everyone gets a prize just scares the hell out of me from that point of view, because I think the race will have even less chances than previously.
Okay. And obviously let's talk about your horse a bit. Al Riffa, tell us about him. 59 kgs is
57, and he would have been a moral, absolute, including Sir Delius. I feel there's only the 2 chances in the race, Al Riffa and Sir Delius.
Okay.
He carried 63, I think, when he won his Group 2 recently, and I think even when he won the St. Ledger, he still carried 61. So no matter which way, he's going to get a little bit of a weight drop, which will be a positive. And 55 for Sir Delius, 55.5 versus 59.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's quite enough for Sir Delius at this stage. The way that Sir Delius, and he's proven that, the other day in the Turnbull, that was one of the slower races he's been in, and he just produced the most amazing turn of foot in sectionals. So he sort of got that string to his bow. And I think that's where, if you're a Sir Delius fan, there's probably not a race shape that would worry me, where Al Riffa, because he's got to carry that 59, if we get a slowly run Melbourne Cup, he will have to carry it, where it'll be in his benefit that there's plenty of skunks in the race and they run along and they can they just seem to carry the weight better when it's a more genuine, even, true tempo. But a stop-start or a slow-run race, I think that brings those better horses back to the pack. And on the same stage, Vauban, I expect he runs top 3 from a Caulfield Cup point of view, given even luck and a good ride. And I think he's your clear 3rd or 4th pick. Okay.
And I always love the, those Northern Hemisphere 3-year-olds that come over and years where they've had the lower weights, like your Rekindlings and your Tiger Moths, and Il Paradiso probably should have won as well. They've run well. And then there was a period where they sort of, actually Tiger Moth was one of them where he had too much weight, where they sort of, got up to 54 and a half, and it was too much. But there's that's back down at 52 kgs further for Andrew Balding. What can you tell us about him?
How do I say this? He's got very, very good form on paper. There's two things against that horse that I think will stop him in the race. But in respect, I'll just say that to the connections. And I think for this year, it'll be too much for him.
Okay.
And
so it just doesn't profile like some of those ones that obviously have done rekindling and cross counter and
he's rekindling cross counters of the world. He's 4 or 5 lengths off them, but that's okay. The race is probably a little bit weaker than those years as well.
Yeah.
He's just got one or two things that I probably shouldn't mention publicly that I would be happy to be against him from the Melbourne Cup point of view. And he's coming with a brilliant trainer. Andrew Balding's one of those guys that when I'm looking to buy a horse, he's in the Aidan O'Brien category where you just put a line through him and say, don't matter what he's selling, I'm not buying.
You're not going to improve him.
Not too much, no. Look, we got lucky with Royal Supremacy, but like I said, he was probably a special one. I've had a couple of him that have been no good as well, but I've just done a bit more research, and Andrew's an amazing trainer, and they generally don't do anything when they leave his yard. There's a few interesting ones there that might get people's attention. Parchment Party from the US, he won a win in your in type thing. Interestingly, to get on to watch the replay and here's Matt Hill calling the race. But he's got absolutely zero hope. He's a real whacker. And to be brutally honest, there's nothing. I was really keen on Further until I knew what I knew, and not as a top 2 chance, but as a top 4 to 5 hope, like a real live second level chance. And everything else in the race.
He won on turf, is that correct?
Yes, he did win on turf. But I think they ended up running. I could be wrong. I can't remember now. I think they ended up running it back on slop.
I think they ran that race on dirt on a heavy track because it rained a lot. But has he run on turf other times?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think one of them was run on the slop, and then they ran it on back on the turf, or went back to the other rubbish. But look, I'm so confident if you draw him in
he's no good.
In a Calcutta, hopefully they pay you for last, because I think he finishes there. He's not much good. Yeah, definitely sell it.
Chevalier Rose.
Again, I actually probably like him better than this thing that's coming, but it's not the same. Yeah, it's just not the same quality Japanese. Of the Japanese that we've probably. Yeah. Yep.
Goodie Two Shoes, Joseph O'Brien.
She's an older mare. I'll be hand on my heart. I don't even know it was coming. I know the horse. It's it ran third last start from memory, and then the start before it won. That time was okay, but if you're comparing it to Al Riffa, it's only getting 6 kilos, and I think you should be getting about 12 or 14. So no. We've seen Onesmoothoperator here, but he's been badly out of form. So he needs to be a red cadeau to do anything.
Okay. And Flatten The Curve from Germany.
Yeah,
he's been running in Germany.
Yeah, it's won a couple of races that, it could be in the Taree Cup tomorrow when I wouldn't be backing it. So don't worry about it. No, look, it's just they're bad horses at the moment in Germany as a rule. Unfortunately, they're just going terrible.
And the only other horse from New Zealand is Trav, who I've followed just because I watched the Wellington Cup and the horse missed the start hopelessly and flew home for 4th in a huge run, and then backed him in the Auckland Cup and he won, and he's just an out-and-out 2-miler. I know he's one of those old New Zealand stayers, and I usually don't like them at all, but I felt like if there's some sort of rough hope for the first time in quite a while from New Zealand, I thought Trav was just the type of horse who he's not even going to get warm over 2,500, but over 2 miles he'll run past a lot of them.
Yeah, you did right. So when he won the Auckland Cup or whatever it was, the time was okay.
Mm.
But again, I think if it was a 2 mile sort of off-season race, yep, you could entertain him. But yeah, and I think we'll have a big tail this year, but you could back him to run top 12. But that would be, I don't want to be wasting any money on him from a winning ticket or a place ticket even point of view.
Time into insights, really fantastic insights into so many of them that I know my listeners going to find really, really valuable. And look, if you're ever wanting a cup horse yourself, then I very strongly recommend having a chat with Luke and the Australian Bloodstock team. We've done it with Vauban and just in a Melbourne Cup. It's a lifetime. Really excited about it. And so yeah, thank you. Thanks for your time as always, Luke.
Anytime at all, Dan. Thank you.
At Winning Edge Investments, our team of highly skilled expert analysts and full-time professional punters review the data, crunch the figures, assess the best betting opportunities, and deliver them to your phone via our app and your email inbox in real time so you profit. Go to www.winningedgeinvestments.com, look at our membership options, make your choice, and enter the promo code PODCAST to receive a special 25% discount on your first membership just for listening. That's PODCAST in capital letters for a 25% ongoing discount on your first membership. Treat your betting like a business and invest intelligently with Winning Edge Investments.